We're now going to be covering the layered PSD workflow. We urge you to download our sample PSD file so you can learn how it's built and how the file should be built. We're going to review some points on this sample file a little bit later in this video. Quick start. Our guidelines will appear. Please review these guidelines as they are very important. We're going to go over some of the points mentioned since we want to emphasize them. The layered PSD file enables you to create a 3D scene from a layered PSD file. When building the file, you should take a 1/2 inch margin on each sides, in order to enable depth assignment. This means that when you assign depth, the layers are moving according to the depth value. When the layers move, you need margins to ensure no white space, 1/2 inch on the right and a 1/2 inch on the left, so the layers can achieve the proper depth. As in the case of all of our workflows, you need an additional 0.08 of an inch for bleed. So therefore, in this case, you will need a 1/2 inch plus the 0.08 of a bleed. This allows us to trim the print and not cut into your design. Another point worth emphasizing is that the PSD file should not contain Photoshop effects to include shadows, alpha channels, folders, rasterizing, etc. Plain layers only are supported. People often upload Photoshop files with effects we don't support. This is a requirement for our software. Under Photoshop, make sure you have only plain layers PSD file. You will see momentarily on our site that you have control to push the layers into different depth cues, but we need to make sure that nothing has been assigned to those layers that has not been flattened. Okay, we're going to upload a file, so first choose the width and height of your file, and then choose the orientation. We're going with 60, which is the default. You could choose between 60 LPI and 40 LPI. Now we're going to wait for it to upload. You see how the width and height requires you to upload a gross image size that is larger, because that includes the 1/2 inch plus the 0.08 bleed. This is a client project for sports events. They photograph the athletes in a few different positions, and the designer creates a composite of different layers. Click Next. We have a viewer called the slider tool that's a very impressive tool, allowing you to assign depth to your file. If you click on any layers, you see that this is the one you have control over. You have the ability to move it left or right. So therefore, this is your ability to control the depth illusion. Let's understand this slider tool better. Layer 10 would be the front element, and layer 1 would be the back. You can't swap it once it's brought in. While the changes on your screen from moving the slider tool may appear very slight in the preview, that is because a screen is the 2D world of a monitor, and the final print will give you a good appreciation for what you've done with your slider tools. Here is a tip. We highly recommend that the layers which contain faces and text will be close to the 0 plane, which is the point that has 0 depth and doesn't move. When you assign depth, you want to avoid text or faces, since there could be blurriness. The PSD file has to be planned so that these layers are in the center of the file. Let's take a look at our sample download in Photoshop so we can tell you how the order of the layers is determined. It is determined on the order of the PSD file, which means that when uploading your PSD file, our software will read the layers as they are listed in Photoshop from top to bottom. And how you name them will also be how they're called. So for example, the top layer there was called Picture, and if you scroll over the layer in our slider tool, it will also say Picture. So you should name them in order to make sure that you have everything in the right place. If you want a different layer to appear in the foreground, it cannot be switched what's uploaded, so it needs to be done prior to uploading to our site. Something else worth mentioning while here is the problem with what we call holes or extra space. When you create the PSD file, the process is called building layers. Sometimes when you separate, there are holes or spaces in the background, which really affects the final outcome. No hidden spaces should appear in the background. For example, if you truncate an image from a photo, there's something behind this layer which is hidden. Now that the layer is moved forward, this area needs to be filled. A hole would appear when you move the layer, and it would be seen. A mistake is to leave it white, which is the default. This is bad, and it will show in the printing. The other mistake is that people are duplicating the layer and not separating it. Then you have overlapping images in the background and foreground. The solution for a good print is to fill the space with the same texture as the background. This could be done with two tools in Photoshop, the Stamp tool and Content Aware. When we're satisfied with the layers, we click Next. Now for the back, on the back you can have player stats, for example, and you can have up to 4 colors. The front is a PSD, the back is typically a PDF or a TIFF file. In terms of resolution, it's recommended between 150 to 300 dpi. This is how your job will print. You can preview the front or back by clicking the icons below. You see that a job name has been created and it shows the print details. And if you're not satisfied, you can go ahead and modify the product. Otherwise, you can click confirm and then add it to cart and checkout, or add to cart and create new. Thank you for watching. This completes the overview of the layered PSD workflow.